The notification pinged at 11:47 p.m., just as I was finally drifting off after another brutal 16-hour shift at Henderson Aviation. My hands still reeked of hydraulic fluid, and my back felt like someone had used it for batting practice. But that text from my wife, Nadine, made everything else fade into background noise. I'm staying at the Riverside Spa Resort for a few days. The massage therapist here really knows how to please a woman, unlike some people I know. Don't wait up. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I read it 3 times, each pass making my chest tighten like a vice. 15 years of marriage, and this is how she tells me she's cheating? No build-up, no fight, no dramatic revelation, just a casual middle finger delivered via text message while I'm lying in our bed, wondering why she hadn't come home from her girls' night out. I sat up, staring at the phone's blue glow in our dark bedroom. The house felt different now, colder, emptier, like the life had been sucked out of it in the span of 37 words. Even Chester, our golden retriever, seemed to sense something was wrong. He lifted his head from his bed in the corner, gave me one of those knowing dog looks, then sighed and went back to sleep. Smart dog. He probably saw this coming before I did. Grant Ellison, aviation maintenance supervisor, certified aircraft inspector, and apparently the world's most oblivious husband. 41 years old, and just now figuring out that my wife of 15 years thinks I'm about as exciting as a tax audit. I walked to the kitchen, poured 3 fingers of bourbon, and tried to process what I'd just read. Nadine owned Serenity Salon and Spa downtown, had built it from nothing into the most successful beauty business in our little corner of Ohio. She was smart, driven, and according to every mirror in our house, still gorgeous at 38. I was a grease monkey who fixed airplanes and came home smelling like jet fuel and disappointment. Maybe I should have seen it coming. The massage therapist. Christ. I knew exactly who she meant. Darren Pike, that smug pretty boy who'd started working at her salon 6 months ago, all sculpted abs and perfect teeth, offering therapeutic treatments to lonely housewives with too much money and not enough attention at home. I'd met him at the salon's Christmas party, watched him work the room like a politician, all charm and wandering hands disguised as professional consultations. I'd even joked about it to Nadine afterward. "That guy's going to get you in trouble," I'd said, laughing. "Half your clients looked ready to divorce their husbands right there in the break room." She'd laugh too. "Don't be ridiculous, Grant. He's just good at his job." Turns out she was right. He was very good at his job. I finished the bourbon and walked back to our bedroom. My bedroom now, I guess. Nadine's side of the closet was half empty. She'd been planning this for a while, packing gradually so I wouldn't notice. Her jewelry box was gone, her favorite perfume missing from the dresser. Even her collection of romance novels had vanished from the nightstand. How long had I been living with a stranger who was just waiting for the right moment to twist the knife? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nadine. "I'll be back Sunday to get the rest of my things. We need to talk about how to handle this like adults." Adults. Right. Because blindsiding your husband with a cheating confession via text message at midnight was the height of mature communication. I typed back, "Take your time. I'll be sure to roll out the red carpet." Then I deleted it and wrote, "Fine. We'll talk Sunday." But even as I sent that polite, civilized response, something darker was crystallizing in my chest, a cold, calculating anger that felt nothing like the hot rage I'd expected. Nadine wanted to handle this like adults? She wanted to have a conversation about dividing up our life like we were discussing who gets the good china? I could be an adult. I could be very, very adult about this. I opened my laptop and started making notes. First things first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. How long had this been going on? Was Darren the first or just the latest? And most importantly, what did Nadine think was going to happen next? At 2 a.m., I called the Riverside Spa Resort. Hi, this is Grant Ellison. My wife Nadine is staying there, and I need to send her some flowers. Could you tell me what room she's in? The night desk clerk, sounding bored and half asleep, gave me the room number without hesitation. Room 237. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called back, disguising my voice slightly. Hey, this is Dave from the flower shop. I've got a delivery for room 237, but I want to make sure I'm not interrupting anything. The guest there, is she alone, or should I wait until morning? A different clerk this time, younger, more talkative. Oh, the blonde lady? Nah, she's got company. Some guy's been coming and going all evening. Massage therapist or something. He's got one of those portable tables. They ordered room service around 10, champagne and strawberries. Real romantic setup, you know? Thanks, I said. I'll wait until morning. I hung up and stared at my notes. Room service, champagne and strawberries, a portable massage table. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment fling. This was a planned romantic getaway, complete with props and room service. Nadine had orchestrated this whole thing, probably spent weeks planning it while I was working double shifts to pay for her salon's new equipment. The betrayal was one thing. The premeditation was something else entirely. I poured another bourbon and started planning. Sunday morning came with the kind of gray, drizzling rain that makes everything look like a crime scene. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the paper, when I heard Nadine's key in the front door. She walked in like she owned the place, which, legally, she still did, carrying an overnight bag and wearing the kind of post-spa glow that comes from 3 days of professional pampering and guilt-free adultery. Grant, she said, setting down her bag. We need to talk. I looked up from the sports section. Do we? Seems like you covered the important points in your text. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. I know this is hard, but we both know things haven't been working between us for a long time. Funny, I said, folding the paper. I thought things were working fine, but then again, I'm just the guy who pays the mortgage while you're off getting pleased by massage therapists. Nadine's jaw tightened. Don't be crude, Grant. This isn't about closeness. No? What's it about then? My sparkling personality? My romantic dinner conversation about aircraft hydraulics? It's about connection, she said, sitting across from me at the table we'd bought together 12 years ago. When was the last time we really talked? When was the last time you looked at me, really looked at me, and saw me as something more than the woman who does your laundry? I studied her face. She was serious. She actually believed this was my fault. You're right, I said. I should have been paying more attention. If I had, I might have noticed you packing for your romantic getaway. I might have seen the credit card charges for lingerie I never got to see you wear. I definitely would have caught on when you started working late every night after pretty boy Darren joined your staff. Her face went pale. How did you... Room 237 at the Riverside Spa Resort. Champagne and strawberries. A portable massage table. Should I go on? Nadine stood up abruptly. You had me followed? I made 2 phone calls, Nadine. Took me about 5 minutes to get the whole picture. You want to talk about connection? Let's talk about how you connected with Darren while I was working overtime to pay for your salon's expansion. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having this conversation before you started screwing your employee. Fair would have been marriage counseling, or separation, or even a screaming fight. Fair wouldn't have been finding out my wife is cheating via text message at midnight. Nadine's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I want a divorce, she said quietly. I figured. What did you think was going to happen? That I'd be grateful for the honesty and wish you well with your new boyfriend? I hoped we could handle this maturely, split things up without destroying each other. I nodded slowly. Maturely. Right. Well, here's some mature honesty for you, Nadine. I've already moved our joint savings into an account with just my name on it. I've changed the locks on the house, and I've scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney for tomorrow morning. She stared at me. You can't do that. Half of everything is mine. We'll see what the lawyer says. Adultery clauses are funny things in prenups. Remember signing that paperwork when we bought the house? You're the one who insisted on it to protect your business assets. The color drained from her face completely now. Grant, please. We don't have to make this ugly. You already made it ugly, sweetheart. I'm just deciding how ugly it gets from here. I stood up and walked to the front door, holding it open. Your stuff is packed and waiting on the porch. I figured you'd want to collect it before the neighbors start asking questions. Nadine looked through the door at the neat stack of boxes I'd spent Saturday organizing. Her clothes, her books, her jewelry, her collection of expensive face creams. Everything sorted and labeled like inventory. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Nadine. Maybe room 237 is still available. She grabbed her overnight bag and walked toward the door, then stopped. This isn't over, Grant. No, I agreed. It's not. After she left, I sat back down at the kitchen table and made a list. Nadine thought she could cheat on me and then negotiate a civilized divorce like we were dissolving a business partnership. She thought I'd roll over and give her half of everything I'd worked for while she'd been planning her exit strategy with pretty boy Darren. She was wrong. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Tommy Brennan. Tommy and I had worked together at the airport for 5 years before he left to start his own security consulting business. Ex-military, ex-cop, and currently the kind of guy you called when you needed information or advice that wasn't exactly legal, but wasn't exactly illegal either. Grant, Tommy answered on the second ring. What's up, buddy? I need a favor, Tommy, and maybe some advice. Shoot. I told him about Nadine, about Darren, about the spa weekend and the divorce demand. Tommy listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always liked about him. So what do you want to do about it? He asked when I finished. I want to make sure she doesn't get to walk away clean. She wants to blow up our marriage for some pretty boy massage therapist? Fine. But she's not going to do it quietly, and she's not going to do it without consequences. Tommy was quiet for a moment. You talking about revenge, Grant? I'm talking about justice. There's a difference. Sometimes. What did you have in mind? I don't know yet. That's why I'm calling you. Well, here's some free advice from someone who's seen a lot of divorces go sideways. You want results? Make it legal. You want to hurt her, hit her where she lives, her reputation, her business, her social circle. But keep it clean, keep it smart, and keep it documented. Scorched earth tactics work, but only if you don't end up in jail or bankrupt when the smoke clears. I thought about that. Nadine's whole world revolved around her salon and her image. She was president of the local small business association, sat on the Chamber of Commerce, hosted charity events. Her reputation was everything to her. Tommy, what do you know about professional licensing for massage therapists? Enough. Why? I'm wondering what kind of ethics violations might get someone's license suspended. Tommy chuckled. Now you're thinking like a strategist. Give me a day or two. I'll make some calls, see what I can find out about your wife's boyfriend. Thanks, Tommy. Don't thank me yet. And Grant, be careful. Revenge is like nitroglycerin. Handle it wrong, and it blows up in your face. After I hung up, I walked out to the porch and looked at the boxes of Nadine's belongings. The neighbors across the street, the Johnsons, were pretending to work in their garden while obviously watching the drama unfold. Mrs. Peterson from next door was walking her dog suspiciously slowly, craning her neck to get a better look. Perfect. I opened the top box and pulled out one of Nadine's photo albums, wedding pictures, vacation shots, anniversary dinners, 15 years of fake smiles and hollow memories. I flipped through until I found what I was looking for. Pictures from the salon's grand opening, the Christmas party, various business events. There was Darren in half a dozen photos, always standing just a little too close to the female clients, his hand always somewhere it probably shouldn't be. And there was Nadine, beaming at the camera, completely oblivious to how obvious it all looked in hindsight. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of the pictures. Evidence, documentation, insurance. Mrs. Peterson had given up all pretense and was standing at the edge of my driveway with her poor dog, who just wanted to finish his walk. "Everything all right, Grant?" she called out. "Just fine, Mrs. Peterson. Nadine's moving out for a while. Marriage counseling, you know how it is." Her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. By dinner time, everyone in the neighborhood would know that the Ellisons were having problems. By tomorrow, the speculation would be running wild. I smiled and waved, then went back inside to plan my next move. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I had research to do, and it couldn't wait. I started with the Ohio State Board of Massage Therapy's website, reading through their professional conduct guidelines and complaint procedures. Fascinating stuff, especially the sections about inappropriate relationships with clients and misconduct. Then I drove to the public library and used their computers to create an anonymous email account. From there, I sent carefully worded inquiries to the State Licensing Board, the Better Business Bureau, and the Riverside Spa Resort's corporate headquarters. Nothing accusatory, just concerned questions about professional standards and appropriate conduct for licensed massage therapists. I also printed out copies of Nadine's credit card statements for the past 6 months. Amazing what you could access when you still had joint accounts. Restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges, purchases at Victoria's Secret and expensive lingerie boutiques. She'd been planning this affair for months, spending our money to finance it. Tuesday, Tommy called with information about Darren Pike. "Your boy's got a history," Tommy said. 2 complaints filed against him in Florida before he moved to Ohio, both dismissed, but there's a pattern. Inappropriate touching during sessions, trying to turn professional relationships personal. He's smart enough to stay just this side of illegal, but he's definitely pushing boundaries. "Can you get me copies of those complaints?" "Already did. I'm emailing them to you now. Also found something interesting. He's not actually licensed in Ohio yet. He's been working under a temporary permit while his application processes. One more complaint could sink that application permanently." I felt something cold and satisfied settle in my chest. "Tommy, you're a beautiful man. Save the sweet talk for your wife. Speaking of which, how's that situation developing?" "She's staying at her business partner's house, woman named Yvonne Matthews. They co-own the salon." "You know anything about this Yvonne?" "Not much. She's been Nadine's partner for about 3 years. Seems nice enough, but I always got the feeling she didn't like me much. Might want to look into that. Business partnerships can get complicated during divorces, especially if there's money involved." After I hung up with Tommy, I spent the afternoon creating a timeline of Nadine's affair using her credit card statements and social media posts. It was all there if you knew what to look for. The gradual shift from posting pictures of us together to posting solo shots, the restaurant check-ins at places we'd never been, the sudden interest in self-care and personal growth. Wednesday, I got my first real break. The hotel employee I'd talked to on Saturday night called me back. "Hey, Mr. Ellison, this is Jake from the Riverside Resort. You called about your wife the other night?" "Yeah, Jake. What's up?" "Well, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but that massage guy, he was here again last night with a different woman. Older lady, really expensive clothes. They were using the same room your wife had, doing the same setup with the champagne and everything." My grip tightened on the phone. "You're sure it was the same guy?" "Positive. I checked him in both times. Darren Pike. Guy's got a real system going. Brings his own sheets, his own music, even his own candles, like he's done this before. Jake, I need a favor. If he comes back, could you give me a call?" "I don't know, man. I could get fired." "There's $100 in it for you. And Jake, you might be doing other women a favor too. This guy's got a history of taking advantage of clients." There was a pause. Yeah, okay. I'll call you. Thursday evening, Jake called. Darren was back at the resort with another woman, this one a redhead driving a Mercedes. I grabbed my camera and drove to the hotel, parking across the street with a clear view of the entrance and parking lot. At 11 p.m., I watched Darren walk out of the hotel with a woman who looked like she belonged in a country club magazine. She was laughing at something he'd said, hanging on his arm like a teenager. They kissed goodbye next to her Mercedes, and she slipped him what looked like a roll of cash. I got pictures of everything. Friday morning, I printed the photos and drove to Serenity Salon. Nadine's car was in the parking lot, along with several others I recognized as belonging to regular clients. Perfect timing. I walked in like I owned the place, nodded to the receptionist, and headed straight for the break room where I knew the staff gathered for their morning coffee. 6 women were clustered around the coffee maker, gossiping about weekend plans and difficult clients. "Ladies," I said, walking in with a manila envelope, "I thought you should know what kind of man you're working with." I spread the photos across the break room table like I was dealing cards. Darren with Nadine at the spa, Darren with the brunette from Wednesday, Darren with the redhead from Thursday. All cozy, all intimate, all clearly more than professional relationships. The room went silent. "That son of a bitch," whispered Maria, one of the senior stylists. I knew something was off about him. "Is that Nadine?" asked another woman, pointing to the spa photos. "That's my wife," I said. "Soon-to-be ex-wife, but I thought you ladies should know that your massage therapist is running a side business out of local hotels, and it's not the kind that's going to look good on your salon's reputation." I left the photos on the table and walked out. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of voices as the staff started processing what they'd just seen. Nadine called me 20 minutes later, screaming. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Grant?" "I'm making sure people know the truth about your boyfriend," I said calmly. "Turns out he's quite the entrepreneur. Did you know you weren't his only client?" The line went quiet. "That's right, Nadine. Your special massage therapist has been running the same con on half the lonely housewives in town. You're not his girlfriend. You're just another mark." "You're lying. Check your email. I sent you copies of all the photos. And Nadine, you might want to get tested. God knows how many women he's been treating." She hung up on me, but I wasn't done. I had one more stop to make. I drove to Yvonne Matthews' house where Nadine had been staying since Sunday. It was a nice place in the suburbs, the kind of house that screamed, "successful businesswoman." I rang the doorbell and waited. Yvonne answered, looking surprised to see me. "Grant, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Nadine." "She's not here. She's at the salon, dealing with some kind of crisis." I smiled. "I know. I started the crisis. But I'm not here to see Nadine, Yvonne. I'm here to see you." Her expression shifted, became more guarded. "What do you want?" "I want to know how long you've been planning this." "Planning what?" "Come on, Yvonne. You're smarter than that. How long have you been pushing Nadine toward Darren? How long have you been feeding her lines about how she deserves better, how she should focus on herself, how she needs to explore her options?" Yvonne's face went pale, but she didn't deny it. "You see, I've been thinking about this whole situation," I continued. "And something's been bothering me. Nadine's not usually the type to have an affair. She's too worried about her reputation, too concerned about what people think. But you know what would make her do something like that? A friend telling her it's okay, encouraging her, maybe even setting up the opportunities. You're paranoid, Grant. Maybe. Or maybe you've been playing a longer game than anyone realizes. Tell me, Yvonne, what happens to the salon if Nadine gets divorced? Does her financial situation change? Does she need to sell her share of the business?" Yvonne's jaw tightened. "I think you should leave." "I think you're right. But Yvonne, when this all falls apart, and it will fall apart, I want you to remember that you started it. Whatever happens next is on you." I walked back to my truck, feeling better than I had in days. The pieces were all falling into place, and I was finally starting to see the whole picture. Nadine wasn't just cheating on me, she was being played by someone who was supposed to be her friend, manipulated into destroying her marriage so that Yvonne could benefit from the aftermath. Well, two could play that game. And I was just getting started. Saturday night, I was sitting at the Landing Strip, our local dive bar, nursing a beer and listening to the gossip mill work its magic. Word about the photos had spread through town like wildfire. Half the women in the place were talking about Darren Pike and his massage services, while the other half were speculating about what this meant for Serenity Salon's reputation. Tommy slid into the booth across from me, carrying 2 fresh beers. "You've been busy," he said. "Whole town's talking about your wife and the massage boy." "Good, let them talk." "Heard something interesting today," Tommy continued. "My buddy who works for the state licensing board says they've received 3 separate complaints about Darren Pike in the past week. Seems like some of his former clients are suddenly finding their voices." I took a sip of beer. Funny how that works. Also heard that Yvonne Matthews has been making calls to commercial real estate agents, looking for a new location for a salon, apparently. Interesting timing, don't you think? I set down my beer and looked at Tommy. "What else did you find out about her?" "Quite a bit, actually. Turns out Ms. Matthews has a history of business partnerships that go sour. She's been involved in 3 different ventures over the past 10 years. Each time she starts as a junior partner, then gradually pushes out the original owner through various means, usually involving personal scandals or financial pressure. Son of a bitch. It gets better. Remember how you said she never seemed to like you? Well, I did some digging into that. Turns out you and Yvonne have a history you probably don't even remember." Tommy pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. 8 years ago, you were doing maintenance work on a private plane owned by a guy named Richard Matthews. Remember him? I thought about it. Vaguely. Rich guy owned some kind of investment company. His plane had engine trouble, and I found out it was due to poor maintenance by his previous mechanic. I had to ground the plane for 2 weeks to fix it properly. Right. Well, Richard Matthews was Yvonne's husband at the time. That 2-week delay caused him to miss some important business meetings, which cost him a major deal. He blamed you for the financial loss, tried to sue you and the airport. The case got thrown out, but the stress and money problems from the failed deal contributed to their divorce. I stared at the folder. She's been planning this for 8 years? Maybe not consciously at first, but when the opportunity presented itself to get back at you through your wife, yeah, I think she jumped on it. And she gets to destroy my marriage and take over Nadine's business at the same time. 2 birds with 1 stone. Tommy nodded. That's how I see it. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I finished my beer and stood up. I'm going to give everyone exactly what they want. Meaning? Meaning it's time for a family reunion. Sunday afternoon, I sent text messages to Nadine, Darren, and Yvonne, asking them to meet me at the landing strip at 7 p.m. to discuss the situation, like adults. I told each of them that the others would be there, and that it was time to get everything out in the open. Then I called Jake at the Riverside Resort and asked him to do me one more favor. At 6:30, I was sitting at the bar when Nadine walked in, looking nervous and angry. She spotted me and marched over. What's this about, Grant? Why did you want to meet here? Patience, sweetheart. Wait for the others. Darren arrived 10 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He was still handsome in that pretty boy way, but there were stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. The complaints to the licensing board were apparently taking their toll. Yvonne was the last to arrive, and she looked furious. This is ridiculous, Grant. Whatever game you're playing, no game, I said, standing up. Just time for some truth. Shall we grab a table? We moved to a corner booth, the 4 of us sitting in awkward silence while the jukebox played classic rock and the usual crowd of locals pretended not to stare. Okay, I said, looking around the table. Here's what's going to happen. We're all going to tell the truth for once. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more games, just honest conversation between adults." "Fine," Nadine said. "You want honesty? I'm in love with Darren, and I want a divorce. There's your truth." I looked at Darren. "How about you, pretty boy? You in love with my wife?" Darren shifted uncomfortably. "Look, man, I never meant for this to happen. Things just developed." "Developed, right. Is that what you call it when you run the same con on multiple women? Because I've got photos of you developing things with at least 3 other married women this week." Nadine's head snapped toward Darren. "What is he talking about?" "It's not what you think," Darren said quickly. "Those were legitimate massage clients. Who paid you cash and met you at hotels?" I pulled out my phone and showed Nadine the photos. This one was Wednesday night. This one was Thursday. Same routine, same setup, same portable massage table. Nadine stared at the photos, her face going white. "You told me I was special. You said you'd never felt this way about anyone before." "You are special," Darren said desperately. "Those other women, they don't mean anything. It's just business." "Business?" Nadine's voice was rising. "You're running a prostitution ring out of hotel rooms?" "It's not prostitution. It's therapeutic massage with additional services." The bar had gone quiet. Everyone was listening now, not even pretending to mind their own business. "Additional services," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" "Well, here's some additional information for you, Darren. The state licensing board has received multiple complaints about your additional services. Your application for permanent licensing has been denied. And as of tomorrow morning, you're banned from practicing massage therapy in the state of Ohio." Darren went pale. "How do you know that?" "I have friends in useful places, but don't worry. I'm sure you can find other work. Maybe something in retail." I turned to Yvonne, who had been sitting silently through this exchange. "Now it's your turn, Yvonne. Want to tell everyone how long you've been planning this?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been manipulating Nadine for months, pushing her toward Darren, encouraging her to cheat, feeding her lines about how she deserves better. All so you could swoop in and buy her out when the divorce gets messy." Yvonne's mask finally slipped. "You can't prove any of that?" "Actually, I can." I pulled out a small digital recorder and set it on the table. "Jake from the Riverside Resort has been very helpful. Turns out he's got a good memory for conversations, especially when they involve guests discussing business deals in the lobby." I pressed play. Yvonne's voice came through the speaker, tinny but clear. "Don't worry about Grant. Once the divorce goes through, you'll need to sell your share of the salon to pay for lawyers and alimony. I'll make sure you get a fair price, maybe 30 cents on the dollar, considering the scandal." Nadine stared at Yvonne in shock. "You recorded me?" "Jake recorded you," I corrected. "I just asked him to pay attention to interesting conversations. Turns out you've been planning Nadine's financial ruin for months, Yvonne. Very thoughtful of you to discuss it in a public place." "You bastard," Yvonne hissed. "No, Yvonne. I'm just a guy who doesn't like being played, and I really don't like people who manipulate my wife, even when my wife is cheating on me." I stood up and looked around the table at the 3 of them. "So here's how this is going to work. Darren, you're going to disappear. Leave town, find a new career, and if I ever see you within 50 miles of here, I'll make sure every woman in America knows about your therapeutic massage business." Darren nodded quickly and practically ran for the door. "Yvonne, you're going to sell your share of the salon to Nadine for exactly what you paid for it. No profit, no appreciation, just your original investment back. And you're going to do it with a smile, because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone in town knows how you've been manipulating your business partner." "You can't make me do anything," Yvonne said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Actually, I can. See, I've been doing some research into your previous business partnerships. Turns out there's a pattern of fraud and manipulation that might interest the state attorney general's office, unless, of course, you decide to do the right thing here." Yvonne gathered her purse and stood up. This isn't over, Grant. Yes, it is. After she left, I sat back down across from Nadine. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Why? She asked. Why did you do all this? Because you broke our marriage, Nadine. You lied to me, cheated on me, and tried to steal half of everything I've worked for. But more than that, you let someone else manipulate you into destroying what we had. I couldn't let that stand. What happens now? I signaled the bartender for another beer. Now you decide what kind of person you want to be. You can keep playing victim, or you can take responsibility for your choices and figure out how to rebuild your life. Do you think, is there any chance we could work things out? I looked at her for a long moment. A week ago, I might have said yes. A week ago, I still loved her enough to forgive almost anything. But that was before I learned who she really was. No, Nadine, we're done. But I'll tell you what, I'll make the divorce easy. You keep the salon, I keep the house and my retirement accounts. We split the debts down the middle and go our separate ways. That's more generous than I deserve. Yeah, it is. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I want this over with, and I want to move on with my life. She nodded and wiped her eyes. I'm sorry, Grant, for all of it. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Nadine gathered her things and headed for the door, then stopped and looked back. For what it's worth, I did love you. I just lost my way. We all lose our way sometimes, Nadine. The difference is what we do when we find it again. After she left, I sat alone at the table, finishing my beer and listening to the bar slowly return to normal. The show was over, and people were going back to their own lives and problems. Tommy appeared at my elbow. How do you feel? I thought about it. Empty, but not in a bad way, like I finally put down something heavy I'd been carrying for too long. That's probably healthy. Probably. Buy me another beer, Tommy. I want to sit here for a while and figure out what comes next. You got it, buddy. As Tommy headed for the bar, I pulled out my phone and deleted Nadine's number from my contacts. Then I deleted the photos, the recordings, and all the evidence I'd gathered over the past week. It was time to stop looking backward and start looking forward. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. 3 weeks later, I was back at work, elbow deep in the engine compartment of a Cessna Citation, when my phone rang. It was Tommy. Grant, you need to turn on Channel 7 News, right now. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked to the break room where we kept an old TV. The noon news was just starting, and the lead story made me stop in my tracks. Local massage therapist Darren Pike was arrested this morning on charges of assault and fraud, the anchor was saying. Pike, who worked at several area spas and hotels, is accused of taking advantage of female clients during what were supposed to be therapeutic massage sessions. The screen showed Darren in handcuffs, being led into the county courthouse. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Pike is also facing charges related to tax evasion and operating an unlicensed massage therapy business. If convicted on all charges, he could face up to 15 years in prison. I turned off the TV and called Tommy back. Did you have anything to do with this? Not directly, Tommy said. But once word got out about his side business, more women started coming forward. Turns out your boy had been running this con for years, in multiple states. The FBI got involved when they realized it crossed state lines. Jesus. Gets better. They arrested Yvonne Matthews this morning too. Seems like she was helping him identify potential targets, lonely wives with money who might be vulnerable to his particular brand of therapy. I sat down heavily in a plastic chair. Nadine? She's cooperating with the investigation. Apparently, she figured out pretty quickly that she'd been played by both of them. Her testimony is going to be crucial in putting them away. After I hung up with Tommy, I sat in the break room for a long time, thinking about how close I'd come to destroying my own life in pursuit of revenge. If I'd pushed harder, been more vicious, I might have ended up in legal trouble myself. Instead, I'd let the truth do the heavy lifting, and justice had found its own way. That evening, I was sitting on my back porch with Chester, watching the sunset and drinking a beer, when a car pulled into my driveway. I didn't recognize the vehicle, but when the driver got out, I saw it was Nadine. She looked different. Thinner, older, like the past month had taken years off her life. She walked up to the porch slowly, like she wasn't sure she was welcome. "Hi, Grant." "Nadine, I saw the news." She nodded and sat down on the porch steps, keeping her distance. "I testified yesterday, told them everything I knew about Darren and Yvonne. That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't, but it was the right thing to do." She was quiet for a moment, then looked up at me. "I owe you an apology, a real one, not the half-hearted thing I gave you at the bar." "You don't owe me anything, Nadine." "Yes, I do. You tried to warn me and I wouldn't listen. You saw what was happening before I did, and instead of being grateful, I got angry at you for exposing it." I took a sip of beer and waited for her to continue. "Yvonne had been working on me for months," she said. "Little comments about how you didn't appreciate me, how I deserved better, how successful women like us shouldn't settle for men who didn't understand our ambitions. I thought she was being a good friend, but she was just grooming me, I guess. Setting me up to make the worst mistake of my life." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that what happened wasn't really about you. It was about me being weak and stupid and letting someone else manipulate my insecurities. You weren't a bad husband, Grant. You were just married to a woman who didn't know how good she had it." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching Chester chase fireflies in the backyard. "What happens now?" I asked. "I don't know. The salon's closed pending the investigation. My reputation's shot. I'll probably have to start over somewhere else, maybe in a different line of work entirely." "You could rebuild here. People forget, especially if you give them time and reasons to." She shook her head. "Too much damage. Too many bridges burned. Besides, I think a fresh start might be good for me. Force me to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be someone else's idea of successful." Nadine stood up and brushed off her jeans. "I should go. I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For stopping me before I destroyed everything. For caring enough to fight for our marriage, even when I didn't deserve it. And for letting me walk away with some dignity intact." She started toward her car, then turned back. "Grant, I hope you find someone who appreciates what a good man you are. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Nadine. We both do." After she drove away, I finished my beer and went inside to make dinner. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely at peace. The anger was gone, the need for revenge had faded, and I was finally ready to start building something new instead of tearing down something old. 6 months later, I was promoted to Chief Maintenance Supervisor at Henderson Aviation. The raise was substantial, and for the first time in years, I wasn't worried about money or job security. I'd also started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I was meeting people and remembering how to have fun. Tommy stopped by one evening with news about the trials. "Darren got 12 years, he said, settling into my kitchen chair with a beer. Yvonne got 8. They tried to blame each other, but the evidence was pretty overwhelming." "What about the other women they scammed?" "Most of them are getting their money back through victim restitution funds. Some are filing civil suits too. These two are going to be paying for their crimes for a long time." "Good." Tommy studied my face. "You seem different, Grant. More relaxed." "I feel different, like I finally let go of something that was poisoning me." "Revenge?" "No, not revenge. Anger. I was so focused on being angry at Nadine for what she did that I forgot to be grateful for what I learned about myself in the process." "Which was?" I thought about it. "That I'm stronger than I thought I was. That I can handle betrayal and loss without becoming someone I don't recognize. And that sometimes the best revenge is just living well and letting other people destroy themselves. Tommy raised his beer in a toast. To living well. To living well. As we drank, I looked around my kitchen, my house, my space, my life, and felt genuinely grateful for the first time in years. Nadine's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but in the end, it had also freed me. Freed me from a marriage that wasn't working, from a life that wasn't making me happy, and from the illusion that I needed someone else's approval to feel good about myself. The spa trip that was supposed to be the beginning of Nadine's new life had instead become the catalyst for mine. She'd wanted to hurt me, to show me that I wasn't good enough, that she could do better. Instead, she'd shown me that I deserved better, and for that, I would always be grateful.